Our main character's name is Lloyd. When he was little, his entire village was destroyed in the Demon Lord's War. At that moment, a powerful mage named Merlin saw him. She saw Lloyd standing frozen among the ruins. Merlin felt overwhelming regret, because her own carelessness had led to this tragedy for the boy. After that, Merlin decided to adopt Lloyd, and she also began teaching him magic. But Merlin's way of teaching magic was very special. At that moment she demonstrated a fire spell exactly once for Lloyd. Then she declared, "You must do it today. If you can't, then you'll have to go hungry." So Lloyd immediately tried his best. And somehow, by evening Lloyd managed to create a small flame in his hand. However, instead of praising him, she suddenly blew on it, extinguishing the flame completely. At the same time she cast a wall of fire, which left Lloyd burned pitch black all over. The next day, during the water element lesson, she asked Lloyd to make water burst out from the ground, but he only managed to make the soil soften. Lloyd then tried both wind magic and ice magic as well. So in the end he was punished every time. A few days later Merlin lay exhausted on the sofa. She looked extremely worn out. When Lloyd saw her like that, he decided to use healing magic, because he wanted to help Merlin feel better. Suddenly she hugged Lloyd to thank him, which made Lloyd very surprised. She said that she wanted to congratulate him on his remarkable progress. But after she fully recovered, Merlin immediately forced Lloyd to train to the point of collapse before allowing him to rest. After a long period of training together, today Merlin was staring at a book with a rather uneasy expression. At that moment Lloyd walked in to invite her to eat. Merlin intended to put the book away, but she accidentally dropped it right in front of Lloyd. And when he bent down to pick it up, suddenly a massive stream of information surged into Lloyd's mind, causing him to faint instantly. At that moment Merlin realized that Lloyd possessed the special qualities of the Chosen One. So she immediately brought Lloyd to his room to rest. Merlin then reflected, "If Lloyd truly is the Chosen One, I will help him become even stronger." Because Merlin doesn't want the same tragedy to happen again. She then bent down and placed a kiss on Lloyd's forehead. Suddenly a faint light appeared and then vanished. The next morning Merlin took Lloyd into the forest, because she wanted to teach him how to use holy magic. When Lloyd tested the spell on a fruit, the fruit suddenly ripened further, which made Merlin praise Lloyd. But she also placed her hand on the tree trunk. Suddenly the entire tree became lush and bloomed with even more fruit. Because she wanted to remind Lloyd not to become arrogant about his power. That night Merlin told Lloyd about the O tribe. They possessed rare magic that allowed them to control monsters. While reading a book, Lloyd happened to notice the concept of ancient magic. But when he mentioned it, Merlin's expression instantly changed. She sternly said, "You do not need to learn that kind of magic." In the days that followed, Merlin began training Lloyd in the skill of summoning a magic staff. Since Lloyd's reactions were still slow, Merlin didn't hesitate to use her own staff to bonk him on the head. Merlin repeatedly reminded him, "No matter how strong you become, you must never neglect your training." She then explained magic stones to Lloyd. Merlin said, "They are a crystallized form of mana, and this power can turn everything around into magic stone." Many years passed. One day Merlin took Lloyd to a forest for special training. She handed Lloyd a small knife. And Merlin said, Lloyd must survive on his own and find his way back home. But before Lloyd could say anything, she left immediately. Right after that, a wolf suddenly appeared. It lunged forward and attacked Lloyd. So Lloyd quickly climbed up a tree to escape. He believed that a white mage's spells weren't strong enough to fight monsters. So Lloyd had no choice but to find his way back home. At that moment Lloyd used magic to scan the entire area. He discovered that this place is very far from my home. Lloyd had no other choice. So he quietly began his journey through the forest. In the following days, Lloyd walked while reviewing his lessons. He even improved the spells he had learned. Suddenly he accidentally stepped on a branch, which caught the attention of a giant spider. In panic, Lloyd activated his acceleration spell to run away and escape danger. In the end he finally made it back home and collapsed immediately. When Merlin saw that, she felt incredibly proud, because Lloyd had overcome the trial by himself. A few more years passed. While cleaning the study room, Lloyd accidentally found a book about the town's history. Curious, he asked Master Merlin to let him borrow it. By this time Lloyd had almost completed his training. He no longer had to endure harsh lessons every day like before. However, Merlin still frequently brought him along to research new kinds of magic. Thanks to his exceptional ability to improve magic, Lloyd was considered by Merlin as an equal partner. But Lloyd still had to stay up all night, because Merlin kept forcing him to train. Now Lloyd was starting to feel exhausted, and deep down he always wondered about life in the outside world. The next morning Merlin went upstairs to wake Lloyd, but she discovered that he had disappeared. Based on the book he left on the table, Merlin quickly guessed where Lloyd had gone. This was Lloyd's first time stepping into a town, and it surprised him, because the place was so crowded. Lloyd then realized he had already spent all his money, so he was forced to find a job immediately. Suddenly a recruitment poster for adventurers was blown straight into his face. At that moment a mysterious man silently watched him. He seemed very interested in Lloyd's choice. Now Lloyd's first mission was to climb to the top of the castle with his teammates. They needed to defeat a gigantic cyclops. When one member was injured, the leader Alan immediately signaled the healing mage to assist. However, as the mage began chanting, Lloyd secretly used a buff spell on the entire team. Suddenly all their stats increased dramatically, making everyone feel stronger and full of energy. But none of them knew Lloyd was the one who cast the spell. Thanks to Lloyd's magic, the archer shot directly into the monster's eye. Meanwhile, the female tanker couldn't believe she could block the Cyclops' heavy punch so easily. Alan didn't doubt the sudden increase in strength at all, because he believed it was due to his own natural talent. Filled with absolute confidence, Alan unleashed a single blow that defeated the Cyclops on the spot. At this moment the female tanker realized this strange power boost was related to Lloyd. When the group returned to town, Alan was praised as a hero, because he defeated a monster no one had dared to face before. They received a huge reward, but Alan only gave Lloyd 5 gold coins, because he only considered him a low-rank rookie. As Lloyd accepted the money, he didn't show any dissatisfaction at all. When Alan invited the team to drink and celebrate, Lloyd immediately refused, because he couldn't drink alcohol. The female mage felt insulted, but Alan just smirked and said, "Where would you find another white mage willing to work for cheap?" Meanwhile at Merlin's house, the mysterious man who once watched Lloyd arrived to report the news to her. Merlin sighed in relief and said, "Now is the right time for Lloyd to leave this place and begin his own journey." But the only thing Merlin wished for was that Lloyd would not become arrogant like she once did when she was young. At this moment, the messenger named Win, he asked Merlin, "Do you still regret what happened that day?" Merlin only smiled softly, but she always blamed herself whenever she remembered that past. Back to Lloyd, he continued serving as a member of Alan's team. In every battle, Lloyd quietly cast support spells that helped the team win one victory after another. That night the female tanker told Alan she felt that monster attacks on her shield had become much lighter lately. Alan admitted he felt the same, but he believed it was due to his own natural talent. She immediately reminded him he hadn't been training at all recently. So Alan had no reason to suddenly become stronger. At the same time, a group of guards were attacked by a gigantic golem. The next morning the guard captain came to ask Alan for help. He reported that the patrol from the previous night had been brutally slaughtered. Alan immediately agreed, because he thought defeating a golem wouldn't be difficult. Everyone gathered and departed. Thanks to Lloyd's detection magic, the team quickly located the golem. They rushed in to attack. At first, the group easily overwhelmed it. However, a demon clan member hiding nearby, he summoned another golem. Lloyd noticed the demon using a staff embedded with a magic stone to control the monster. He knew magic stones were extremely dangerous, so Lloyd couldn't hesitate. He immediately cast a spell to increase accuracy, and ordered the archer to shoot an arrow at the demon. Hearing Lloyd give an order surprised her greatly, but the archer still followed it and the arrow hit the target. Next, Lloyd told the mage to teleport the staff toward him. When he grabbed the staff, Lloyd immediately cast a sealing spell on its power. This action infuriated Alan, because he felt his leadership role was being threatened. To prove his authority, Alan charged forward to kill the golem himself. However, Lloyd noticed the golem was preparing a fatal attack, so he cast acceleration and rushed in to save Alan's life. But Alan didn't thank him. Instead, he yelled at Lloyd for interfering. Right after that, he swung his sword and finished off the golem. When they returned to town, Alan angrily expelled Lloyd from the team. He accused Lloyd of being useless and only causing trouble. Lloyd accepted it silently and left without resisting. After that, Lloyd wandered through the streets. He wondered if he was truly that worthless. But when Lloyd reached the fountain, he saw a statue of Merlin, which filled him with admiration and reminded him of his master. Meanwhile, in another party, a group of adventurers were hiding in the bushes. They were observing their target, a brutal bandit gang. Everyone was excited about the mission, except for the team's white mage. Soon after, the group launched their attack on the bandits' hideout and fought fiercely. Even though they were outnumbered, they controlled the situation thanks to their perfect teamwork. With the powerful buffs from Zoom, the team's white mage, the entire group's strength surged dramatically, which allowed them to overwhelm the bandits quickly. The bandit leader was confused at first, unable to understand how such young adventurers could be so strong. But when he saw the S-rank tag hanging around Yui's neck, the pink-haired girl, he was shocked to realize he had picked the wrong enemy. Instead of surrendering, the leader recklessly drew a staff embedded with a magic stone to summon a massive stone golem. This was an extremely serious threat because its stone body made it nearly immune to arrows and most magic. Yui decided to take the lead. She charged in with a powerful slash, but the blade only made a harsh metallic sound, proving how incredibly tough the monster was. She immediately called for Zoom to buff her strength, but today's Zoom was a bit distracted. Even so, after receiving the full enhancement, Yui delivered a decisive slash, splitting the heavy golem cleanly into two pieces. The battle ended quickly and the bandits were tied up neatly. Zoom bowed her head apologetically for being distracted during the fight, but Yui simply smiled and said it was fine, as she understood Zoom was worried about her sick sister. In the days that followed, Loi, a young white mage, tried to find a new party to join. But it was not easy at all. Just then, Yui burst into the guild looking flustered, urgently searching for a white mage to replace Zoom. The guild receptionist hadn't even agreed to register the recruitment request yet when Yui rushed over, grabbed Loi's hand, and dragged him away before he could react. The two quickly arrived at the party's temporary base. Daggers, the shield warrior, Cross, the archer, and Silica, the mage, were shocked to see Yui actually bring back a white mage in record time. Yui hadn't even asked Loi's name, leaving the team half laughing and half crying. Yui welcomed Loi to the party. While Loi was still confused since he had never agreed, Cross immediately suggested canceling the mission because without a white mage, this A-rank job would be too dangerous. Daggers also doubted that Loi could possibly replace Zoom, but Yui firmly said they couldn't refuse. The client was desperately begging for help. And the mission was A-rank. Only A-ranked teams and above could take it. Yet all the other A-ranked teams were busy, leaving only their team available. Loi was stunned to learn that Yui's team was actually an S-rank adventurer group. Cross added that they could only bring someone along if that person was an official member. So Loi would have to prove his ability, although still unsure of himself after being expelled by his former hero party. Loi agreed to try. The whole team went to an open training field. Daggers suggested Loi use any buff spell so they could evaluate him. Yui asked him to cast buffs on the entire team at once, something most white mages couldn't do. Loi was confused, not understanding why such a simple request was an S-rank test. He summoned his staff using chantless storage magic, making the whole team gape, not knowing where he pulled it from. Just a few seconds later, Loi completed buffing the entire team. What shocked them most was that they never heard him chant a single spell. Yui swung her sword at a large tree to test it, and the trunk split cleanly in half, making everyone pale in fear. Loi explained that he had cast 5 different buffs simultaneously. He simply thought, an S-rank team probably needs something stronger, so he did it just to be safe. The entire team froze at how absurdly powerful Loi was, while Loi himself thought he had done nothing special and decided to leave because he couldn't meet their expectations. Yui panicked and called him back. Loi honestly explained that he was kicked out of his old hero party for being considered too weak. Hearing that, Daggers, Cross, and Silica all thought it was ridiculous. They had never seen a white mage cast multiple chantless spells like that. Lloyd still believed it was better for Zoom to return to the team. But Yui explained Zoom left because she had to care for her seriously ill sister. Her sister was slowly turning into magic stone, and Zoom couldn't handle the pressure of fighting while also caring for family. Hearing this, Lloyd remembered his master's teachings and immediately asked Yui to take him to Zoom's home. When he entered the room, he immediately sensed the chaotic mana leaking from the little girl's body. Zoom's sister's arms and legs had already turned half into stone. After examining the wound, Lloyd confirmed that this was caused by being cut by extremely strong magic stone, allowing its corrupted mana to invade the body. He took out his staff and announced he would use a special transmutation spell to extract all the poisoned mana. Zoom panicked because even high-ranking mages were helpless against this condition. But Lloyd calmly began the treatment. He used a restricted version of the spell, mana absorption, an extremely dangerous magic because it consumes too much energy. But it was the only way to save the girl. Slowly, the stone-like patches on Zoom's sister softened and returned to normal flesh. When the little girl opened her eyes, Zoom burst into tears of joy. After confirming that her sister was safe, Lloyd felt genuinely happy seeing Silica fully recovered. But deep down he also felt a faint sadness, knowing Zoom would not return to the team anymore. Silica, watching everyone chatting cheerfully, seriously reminded them that they should start thinking about the future of the team. However, she also agreed that for now, the most important thing was celebrating her complete recovery. Lloyd observed each member, and this time he truly felt the difference between this team and the one he used to belong to. The atmosphere here was far warmer and more open. While everyone was talking, Lloyd gathered all his courage, his voice trembling slightly, and asked if he could join the team. Hearing that, everyone was delighted, because they had thought Lloyd didn't want to join them. Yui reached out to welcome him and excitedly announced that they would hold a big party to celebrate their new member. Everyone knew Lloyd cared a lot about food, which made Yui warn him that he would end up vomiting if he didn't hold back. And so the party continued. In a cheerful atmosphere, Yui told Lloyd that today everyone would treat him freely, and he didn't need to restrain himself from eating. Lloyd, without any hesitation, immediately dove into the dishes like a starving spirit, because he had long been used to eating poor meals made by his master. Cross, sitting nearby, shrugged and said that although he didn't want to ruin the mood, the food in this tavern was just average. Lloyd laughed, remembering his childhood, when his master only cooked simple dishes from wild vegetables or unseasoned monster meat, which forced him to learn cooking from Napfi men even though his results were not very good. The team members grew curious about Lloyd's master. He explained that his master was a combat-focused mage who also had a passion for destroying things during magic experiments, making Silica exclaim, "Amazing! I wish I had a master like that," but Lloyd quickly stopped her. Awkwardly laughing, "I don't think you could survive her bizarre training methods." Even though she was strict, Lloyd still affirmed in his heart that his master was kind and sweet. Returning to the mission topic, Yui announced that the team needed to discuss strategy so Lloyd could understand the upcoming task. However, Silica admitted she was not experienced in this area and asked Daggers to explain. Daggers said that this mission was to eliminate several monsters destroying crops in nearby farms, trampling the villagers' fields. Lloyd found it strange because monsters usually didn't gather in groups of 7. And the team quickly accepted the mission. Cross explained that if they had to face such a large number of monsters, he and Yui would be at a disadvantage. So Silica, with her wide area magic, would be the most suitable for the job. Lloyd could also support a bit, but his firepower wouldn't match Silica's. Daggers suggested dividing roles. He and Yui would distract and gather the enemies. Cross would protect Silica and Lloyd from surprise attacks. Lloyd, as the white mage, would support and heal. Silica eagerly wanted to see Lloyd use his support magic, but he reassured her not to expect too much. The team told Lloyd not to belittle himself, reminding him that humility and sincerity were more valuable than flashy strength. When the party finally ended, they agreed to meet again the next morning in front of the inn. Everyone left, but Lloyd walked in the opposite direction, making Daggers curious. Lloyd shyly explained that he had no money to rent a room and planned to sleep outdoors. Daggers took out a pouch of money to give him, but Lloyd refused out of pride. Daggers emphasized that this was only a loan, to be repaid after receiving the mission reward, and Lloyd promised he would return it in full, silently vowing to devote himself entirely to the party. The next morning, Yui was the last one to wake up, and she wondered about the luggage. Cross explained that Lloyd had used storage magic to lighten the load, which delighted Yui, who immediately asked him to store her belongings too. Lloyd promised to teach everyone the storage spell, explaining that most people had enough basic mana to learn it, but they needed training to store larger amounts. The whole team was excited, and after some time, everyone succeeded in learning the spell. On the way to the farm, Daggers pointed out to Lloyd the demon kingdom behind the treacherous mountains. When crossing a shaky wooden bridge, the team played a word reversal game to ease their nerves. In the forest, a mysterious cloaked figure knelt before a boulder. While Lloyd's group arrived early at the campsite, Lloyd volunteered to gather firewood so the two girls could bathe comfortably. While collecting wood, he spotted a fruit familiar from his master's teachings. But right after that, a giant snake attacked the two girls. Lloyd immediately rushed over to distract the monster, throwing his weapon and casting buffs on his teammates. Yui delivered a clean slash. Silica launched a fireball that finished the monster. Yui praised Lloyd non-stop, but in the middle of celebrating, her towel suddenly slipped off, giving everyone an unexpected scenery show. Back at the camp, Lloyd began teaching the storage spell to the team. Although his teaching method was confusing at first, thanks to Silica's quick understanding, the whole team eventually learned it. During Night Watch, Yui thanked Lloyd for joining the group, but Lloyd humbly declined the praise, saying he simply needed a job. Lloyd then asked Yui why she cared so much about this mission, and she admitted that it reminded her of her hometown, which had once been destroyed by monsters, and she was the sole survivor. Suddenly, Lloyd detected suspicious movement, immediately signaling the team to wake up. A swarm of giant demon spiders appeared, and Lloyd quickly signaled everyone to retreat silently toward safety. Lloyd himself only provided minor support to strengthen his allies, but even that produced surprising results. Meanwhile, the magic stone controlling the monsters had been destroyed, causing the beasts to lose direction and start attacking each other. As for the remaining monsters, things weren't looking good as they continued charging toward the group without stopping. Seeing this, everyone quickly took their positions, preparing for the incoming battle, each of them anxious at the overwhelming number of monsters. But Lloyd reassured them, saying they needed to wait until the monsters got closer before attacking. Just as the creatures were about to reach Silica, Lloyd signaled her, and she immediately cast Firestorm. The spell was far stronger than anyone imagined, wide in range and devastating in power. Lloyd explained that he had only enhanced her mana output and reduced her energy consumption, leaving everyone speechless. The entire forest was instantly engulfed in a sea of flames. Seeing the danger, Lloyd rushed to Cross and transmitted a detection spell directly into the archer's mind. Thanks to that, Cross was able to shoot down the flying monsters panicking in the thick smoke and fire. Not stopping there, Lloyd also transferred all of his mana to Silica, allowing her to cast a rain-making spell, extinguishing the spreading fire. After the spell ended, the only thing left to do was clean up the remaining debris. And everything went perfectly according to plan. Yui and the other members showered Lloyd with praise for carrying the entire team throughout the battle. But deep inside Lloyd, a sense of unease still lingered. He realized he was still weak since he felt exhausted after wiping out thousands of monsters. He also suspected that the group had just been lured into a carefully prepared trap, meant to draw high-rank adventurers away from the capital. Lloyd believed that the mastermind might be trying to weaken the city's defenses before launching an attack. But the others reminded him that the knights were still in Ista, so the city wasn't completely undefended. Yui still suggested returning to check the situation, and Lloyd immediately cast a speed boost spell on the entire team, and they began running back toward the city. Seeing Lloyd shoot off like an arrow, everyone was stunned at first, but soon they also started moving at incredible speed once the acceleration spell took effect on them. Lloyd explained that he had cast the speed spell on everyone, helping them return much faster, leaving the group speechless once again because of his habit of acting silently. Elsewhere, The Count was leisurely enjoying his wine when one of the 4 heavenly kings, Gree, walked in to report that the plan was progressing smoothly, all thanks to the girl he had captured with an extremely useful ability. In truth, the Count had experimented with the girl's power many times, and Chris felt he was plotting something, but didn't dare question him because the Count was the Demon King's right hand. The girl was imprisoned in the dark dungeon, occasionally given recovery potions and drained of mana to create magic crystals that attracted monsters, causing her to gradually lose the will to resist. Back to Lloyd's group, they had just crossed a wide grassland and were on their way back to the city. Silica began worrying about Lloyd's health because maintaining the speed spell for so long must be exhausting. But Lloyd reassured her that he could significantly reduce the mana consumption. He explained that when he was little, his master used to throw him into the forest and force him to survive on his own, even though he was only a healing mage. Lloyd had to try many spells just to stay alive and find his way back, which taught him how to conserve energy while running continuously. Yui and Silica were both shocked after hearing that, because subjecting a child to such harsh training was anything but normal. Even so, Lloyd still insisted that his skills were lacking, and that he needed much more training. After the group finished resting, Lloyd suggested that everyone move ahead, while he split off to investigate. Yui objected because it was dangerous, but Lloyd appreciated the concern from his teammates. Lloyd led the group to the source of the tremor and confirmed that there were demons inside the wooden house. Lloyd agreed that they should report it to the night squad, but first they needed to gather more information. The mana he sensed from the house was identical to the magic crystal they had just destroyed, proving that these demons were connected to the plan to attack the city. Yui agreed and convinced everyone that it was the duty of adventurers to protect civilians, and that they also had a chance to stop the attack if they eliminated the demons here. When the group approached the window of the house, the inside was completely empty. Lloyd used a detection spell again and confirmed that the demons were underground. Unable to find an entrance, Lloyd quickly enchanted Silica so she could cast a sandpit spell, creating a hole that made the entire group fall straight down to where the demons were performing a ritual. When the ceiling collapsed, everyone panicked, and before they could react, the real battle had already begun. At that moment, Cross swiftly drew his bow, firing a precise arrow that took down the demon who was casting the spell, causing the remaining demons to fall into chaos. Some of the demons tried to take advantage of Yui being occupied to launch a surprise attack, but Cross didn't hesitate, shooting 2 of them in the thigh as they charged in, opening a path for Yui to finish them off. The whole group quickly regrouped and chased after the last remaining enemy. Behind them, a demon was about to use a spell to wrap a girl into a cocoon to carry her away, but Yui and her teammates rushed in, frightening him into fleeing. The chase led them up the stairs toward the exit. When the demon was cornered against the final wall, Lloyd shouted, "Surrender!" But the enemy refused, attempting to cast a spell in hopes of wiping out the entire group. Staying sharp and calm, Lloyd conjured multiple magic shields to protect his allies, and counterattacked, taking down the demon instantly. Yui discovered that the cocoon contained a girl, and the group temporarily brought her back to the wooden house to let her recover. The beast-eared girl slowly regained consciousness, opened her eyes, and shyly introduced herself as Kureha. Lloyd explained the details of their mission, saying that they had detected strange magic from a mysterious stone, and wanted to know whether the energy controlling the monsters was coming from Claire. After a moment of hesitation, Claire admitted that her own magic was powering the magic stones, which the demons had taken advantage of. Meanwhile, at the edge of the forest near the city, 2 soldiers discovered a magic stone, but as they approached it to investigate, hordes of monsters suddenly rushed in to attack. One soldier escaped by sheer luck, and alerted the city. Claire confessed she had been used, and the group finally understood the demons' plan to invade the human kingdom. Ista was the first target. Lloyd sensed 2 separate waves of monsters approaching, and suggested the others return to Ista to report, while he and Claire would split off to stop the monsters. Meanwhile, at the Adventurers Guild, Alan expressed disappointment in the entire current force, declaring that they were only fit to be disposable pawns. The guild master urged him to calm down, reminding him that the enemy they faced was the monsters, not their allies. But Alan still ordered the mages to use their strongest spells to wipe out 10 monsters at a time. While the melee fighters held the front line, other adventurers protested, saying the order was unrealistic. And even the mage Mia admitted that her magic wasn't as strong as before. Ever since Lloyd left the group, everyone had noticed a clear drop in their combat strength. Alan exploded with anger, accusing his teammates of lying about their abilities. But Lena calmly countered, the same thing was happening to Alan himself. He just didn't realize it because he was too absorbed in his hero title. Being exposed in front of everyone, Alan turned red with embarrassment and charged forward to punch her, but his strength had weakened so much that Lena easily blocked it. Humiliated in front of the crowd, Alan could only run off to find some pants to cover his shame. Some people panicked, thinking about abandoning the city, but Lena reassured them that she was ready to stay and fight. However, she couldn't deny that the situation was extremely dire. She quickly asked whether anyone had seen Lloyd recently, hoping he could return to help. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Lloyd and Claire discovered a magic stone hidden among the thick branches. The dark energy leaking from the stone was likely the reason Claire's magic had been disrupted. Destroying it was necessary, but with such a vast forest, they would need at least dozens of similar magic stones. Claire confirmed she could sense their energy when nearby, but the forest was too large for her to pinpoint exact locations. Lloyd immediately used a spell to share and enhance senses, helping Claire locate all the remaining stones. At the same time, he cast an invisibility spell on both of them, allowing them to move through the forest without being detected by monsters. The two quietly entered the danger zone, beginning to dispel the dark magic controlling the monsters. In the city, the adventurers gathered outside the walls preparing for battle. Lena finally admitted the truth. It was Lloyd who carried the group's success, and driving him away had been their greatest mistake. The hero title had made everyone arrogant, believing their victories came from their own strength. The guild master announced that Lloyd wasn't in the city, since he was currently on a mission with an S-rank party. Lena speculated that he might shorten travel time thanks to his movement support magic. So with luck, he could be on his way back. The archers fired the first volley of arrows to thin the monster numbers. When the monsters fell into the pre-dug trenches, the shield-bearers formed a defensive line to block them, while the mage squad cast fireball sand water spells to wash the monsters away. Maintaining this formation was not easy, but the group could hold the line until Lloyd and the S-rank adventurers returned. That night, Lloyd and Claire found the final magic stone. When they neutralized it, all the monsters returned to normal. Unfortunately, the monsters included white wolves and black panthers, natural enemies. And the moment they were freed, they charged at each other in chaotic combat. One of them crashed into Claire, breaking the invisibility that Lloyd had cast. She trembled in fear, forgetting her monster-controlling ability. Lloyd rushed out just in time to draw the monster's attention, protecting her. Back in the city, the prolonged battle was breaking the defense lines. And if things continued, the city would fall. Just as hope was fading, a massive fireball flew across the battlefield, reigniting the warriors' fighting spirit. Lloyd continued dodging countless attacks, pouring all his remaining strength into protecting his allies. Claire realized Lloyd was only defending, not attacking, and she understood the promise he was trying to uphold. Regaining her composure, she began to sing, causing all the monsters to stop fighting and return to the forest. When the monsters withdrew, Claire nearly collapsed, and confessed to Lloyd that her real name was Coreja, not Claire. Lloyd was surprised, but believed she had her reasons for hiding her identity. For now, they still had to face the approaching army of giant golems heading for the city. Count Mean panicked when he realized only the golems were advancing, because he could no longer hear Claire's voice. Lloyd used a speed-enhancing spell, rushing back toward the city, ready to lead the decisive battle. As he passed the golem troops, Lloyd noticed they had been reinforced, their strength far exceeding normal levels, making them extremely difficult to defeat. He lifted Claire in his arms and leapt far across the moat. Then reunited with everyone. Although everyone thanked him, Lloyd humbly replied that the real credit belonged to Claire, because her ability to make the monsters retreat had bought them precious time. However, the danger from the golems was far from over. At that moment, Lloyd fell to one knee. Exhausted after using magic non-stop for several days, everyone urged him to rest. But Lloyd refused, saying he couldn't relax while the city was still in danger. He even asked the guild master to protect Claire, someone very important to him. The guild master gladly agreed, because Lloyd was their only hope now. Lloyd was surprised, thinking the hero party was still in the city. But Lena appeared, informing him that Alan had refused to fight and didn't deserve the title of hero. Seeing Lena's heavy arm injury, Lloyd didn't hesitate to cast a healing spell. The magic worked, but Lloyd nearly fainted from mana depletion. Lena, moved, apologized for not valuing Lloyd in the past, admitting her fault for not stopping Alan from kicking him out. Immediately after, the alarm bell rang, warning that the golems had entered the city. A few fell into the moat, but the rest remained standing. Soldiers rushed into battle, ignoring Lloyd's warning that these were not ordinary golems. All ranged weapons and magic bounced off their hardened shells. If they didn't act quickly, the city would be destroyed. Lloyd told Yui he would cast enhancement magic on all soldiers. Yui worriedly asked if he could withstand it, since enhancing over 100 people was insane. Lloyd reassured her, saying he would do it in groups. After finishing the enhancements, Lloyd collapsed from exhaustion, warning that the spell wouldn't last long. Dewey assessed the situation, climbed the watchtower, and shouted that the soldiers could now fight at full strength. At first, no one believed him, but when Lena rushed in to guard for Yui, allowing her to slice a golem in half, everyone finally believed it, feeling the power surging through their bodies. The soldiers regained their morale and began their counterattack. Lloyd asked Cross to support the mage squad in the rear, while Yui and Lena advanced to the front line. He was nearly unconscious, and had to be carried back to the castle by a soldier to rest. Thanks to the enhancement spell, the adventurers continuously defeated the golems. However, when they were about to finish the final one, the spell wore off, and they were once again powerless against its overwhelming strength. Yui immediately blocked its path, but as it prepared to attack, Lena shoved her aside, creating an opening for daggers to deliver a heavy punch. Lloyd gathered the last of his mana and enhanced Yui's sword, helping the two shield bearers block the next strike. Rui ran along the golem's arm, slicing off its head, finally restoring peace to the city of Ista. With the city now safe, Lloyd woke up in an inn. The first thing he did was apologize, saying he still wasn't strong enough. Yui, fed up with Lloyd's constant self-doubt, dragged him outside. As they stepped through the door, Lloyd was stunned to see a huge crowd gathered, all shouting his name. Startled, he slammed the door shut, because he had never received that much attention before. Yui reminded him that people only wanted to thank him, and shutting the door like that was extremely rude. When they opened the door again, Lloyd jumped out through the back window to avoid the crowd. Lloyd hid on the rooftop, watching the people below, when his friends arrived to explain that the citizens only wanted to thank him for saving the city. Lloyd still felt he didn't deserve it. Everyone encouraged him to have more confidence. And for the first time, Lloyd truly listened. Eventually, he stepped out to face the townspeople, receiving their warm gratitude. The people saw Lloyd as the new hero of Ista. Meanwhile, Alan and those who refused to fight were in serious trouble. Their refusal during an emergency cost Alan his hero title, and he ordered his party to pack up and leave the city. The next day, Lloyd and the group were summoned to Lord Abel's castle. They were surprised to see Claire present as well. Lord Abel appeared, revealing a shocking truth. Claire was actually the third princess of the Forest Empire. Lloyd admitted that the princess's power was extraordinary, but extremely dangerous if it fell into the wrong hands. Abel assigned Yui's group a special mission: escort Claire back to the royal capital of Forest. The royal knights normally handled such tasks, but too much attention would alert their enemies. The group agreed to take the mission, and the next morning, their journey began. Upon arriving at a nearby town, the group planned to rest for one night before continuing. However, Lloyd gathered everyone to discuss something. He wanted to stay in town for a few more days to prepare. Daggers supported the idea, since he planned to upgrade his equipment. Silica wanted more magic practice. Cross didn't care as long as the group agreed. Yui accepted postponing the journey for a few days. The next morning, the group prepared to depart. Lloyd felt down because while everyone else had learned new skills, he had only optimized his magic. learned a few wide area spells, and developed a new tracking spell. Feeling insignificant compared to the others' achievements, the group was growing tired of Lloyd's constant self-doubt. Lilith returned, bringing news about Lloyd's group and their progress, which greatly interested Merlin. Lilith shared that she wanted to help Yui grow stronger, while also teaching the group advanced combat techniques, opening a new chapter in their journey. Merlin suddenly became irritated because Yui had gone without her, while she herself wanted to see her beloved disciple. Her emotions built up so strongly that she became visibly frustrated. Meanwhile, the demon general whose invasion plan had failed was forced to return and report to the Demon King. The Demon King was furious, since the monster army had been the core of the human world invasion. Though he regretted placing so much trust in the general, it was too late to devise a new plan. He ordered that Claire be recaptured at all costs, or the general would be stripped of his rank. However, the Demon King had no idea where Claire was. At that moment, a count arrived, reporting that Claire was currently being escorted to the royal capital by a group of adventurers, and suggested cooperating to make up for his mistakes, leaving the demon general with no choice. Meanwhile, the mood within Lloyd's group was extremely tense. Even a rabbit jumping out of a bush was enough to scare everyone. Lloyd immediately scanned the area, assuring them that no danger was present, but still felt he needed to improve so he wouldn't be a burden. This was already the 7th time the group had talked to Lloyd about this issue. Yet he still didn't seem to understand. Lloyd insisted that he simply wasn't talented, but he still wanted to do better. The group reminded him that they were the ones who needed to train hard just to keep up with him. Claire asserted that Lloyd was the strongest among them. Yui emphasized that he needed to recognize his own strength, otherwise he would never unlock his full potential. Finally, Lloyd promised he would be more confident. In the royal capital, Master Merlin was searching for an old friend. When she reached the palace, the guards blocked her path, but she simply used an illusion spell and slipped inside quietly. Passing through the library, Merlin waved her hand, dispelling a magical seal to reveal a hidden door. But before she could knock, Ryo opened it. He recognized Merlin's mana because of its pleasant fragrance. Ryo explained that the son of the previous Demon King now ruled the demon realm, though he had shown no activity for years. Merlin teased that the Emperor must really like Ryo to let him turn the library into a personal research room. She produced half of the original Dark Grimoire and asked Ryo to check whether it still contained the power to seal the Demon King. Ryo confirmed there was still mana inside, merely remnants left by Sibin, which made Merlin rejoice, believing they still had a chance. Lloyd's group was expected to reach Town S in a few hours, then spend another day traveling to the royal capital. However, Lloyd noticed that his detection spell was being disrupted, and suddenly, a thick fog enveloped the group. Silica couldn't summon her staff, leading everyone to conclude this was a demon trap. With no better choice, the best option was to run straight to town for shelter. As the fog began to thin, Lloyd boosted Silica's mana so she could summon her staff. Immediately, Silica detected a group of demons standing in the middle of town. Lloyd instantly ordered everyone to prepare for battle. Daggers would protect Claire. Cross would provide cover fire from the tower. The others would deal with the foot soldiers. Rui used his mana slash to cut down multiple enemies. Shik wanted to use explosion but held back to avoid harming allies, so he used regular flames instead. Cross compensated for the lack of firepower, but when he shot at Chris, the one who had previously kidnapped Claire, the arrow had no effect. Chris charged straight toward Claire, but daggers blocked the attack just in time. Yui struck from behind but still couldn't land a hit. Lloyd realized Chris was reinforcing his armor with mana, and as Chris leapt up to strike, Silica unleashed her strongest explosion spell. Yet it still couldn't break through Chris's mana armor. The group was beginning to lose hope, when the ground erupted, and massive ice pillars froze all the demons solid. The one responsible was the frost hero, Syrian, who had arrived to protect Claire. The Count tried to summon more fog, but wind sliced it apart instantly. Syrian mocked Lloyd's group, saying they were too weak compared to S-rank adventurers, but admitted they had done well protecting Claire. Chris shattered the ice and broke free. Syrian told everyone to fall back so he could handle him. He launched a colossal ice attack, forcing Chris to dodge in fear. proving the enemy could indeed be hurt. Lloyd noticed Chris gathering mana to unleash a deadly punch, and immediately warned the group to take cover. Chris closed the distance, forcing Sirian to counter with a devastating ice punch. The shockwave so strong that even wind felt it. In that moment of distraction, the Count escaped. Lloyd checked on his teammates, but saw Chris grabbing Claire and preparing to flee. Sirian tried to chase using an ice pillar, but the pillar cracked and collapsed. Lloyd quickly told Silica to use air cushion magic to save Sirian. Sirian desperately wanted to keep chasing, but Lloyd stopped him, and the group had no choice but to trust Lloyd. Suddenly, an alarm drum sounded, signaling that Lloyd's group was closing in. They managed to board the ship by combining Sirian's ice with the anti-gravity spell Lloyd had just learned. Chris still had no intention of releasing Claire, and decided to go all out against the entire group. In an instant, Lloyd cast enhancement magic that allowed everyone to dodge the incoming attack. Sirian countered with an ice sword strike, but the moment it touched Chris's mana armor, the blade shattered into pieces. While Chris was momentarily distracted, Lloyd secretly cast a small spell on him, signaling the group to charge in, forcing Chris to constantly reactivate his mana armor. Chris burst into laughter, mocking them. What kind of childish attacks are these? But the group never intended for those attacks to break his armor in the first place. When Chris lunged forward with a devastating punch, Daggers managed to block it just in time. Suddenly, Chris's arm froze completely and shattered into fragments. Sirian explained that this was the result of severe frostbite. Lloyd had cast a spell earlier preventing Chris from feeling pain, while Sirian continuously blasted him with freezing air. Too busy defending against everyone else, Chris failed to notice his body freezing, leaving him unable to fight. Panicking, Chris ran below deck, intending to release the monsters. The Count was shocked. Unable to control the monsters, if released, everything would descend into chaos. Lloyd's group caught up, demanding he release Claire, but Chris instead unleashed all the monsters and ordered them to attack. A snake even turned on him, making the situation even more chaotic. Fortunately, the group activated their special prototype once the sonic wave was emitted. All the monsters instantly froze in place. Sirian seized the moment and rushed to rescue Claire. Seeing the Count order an attack, everyone raised their weapons, but Claire stopped them, refusing to let innocent creatures be harmed. She began singing an ancient spell that soothed the monsters. The song required about 30 seconds to take effect. The Count failed to interrupt her, and instead became excited witnessing such incredible magic. At the same time, the Demon King's shard reacted, causing the ship to lose control. Chris lost his balance, and accidentally touched the shard, his mind clouding instantly. The Count realized Claire's ancient magic had disrupted the life force inside the shard. He quickly pulled it out. But the ship ran out of power and began to fall. Thanks to Lloyd's gravity magic, the group managed to stay balanced. Suddenly, Chris stood back up, his eyes empty, repeatedly demanding a knife, as if he had become a vessel for the Demon King. When he touched the shard again, dark energy engulfed his entire body, draining all the life force from the surrounding monsters, awakening a grotesque fused creature, a chimera, a monster containing multiple lives within one body. Claire watched in heartbreak, while the Count grew ecstatic that his experiment had succeeded. However, the chimera was far too close. The chimera casually tore the Count in half, and even in his dying moments, the only thought in his mind was how magnificent the creature was. Smiling in satisfaction before breathing his last, Lloyd's group had no time to waste. They had to quickly come up with a plan to avoid the same fate. Cross suggested everyone abandon the ship, but Claire refused to leave the creature behind. Sirian said it was too late, and everyone rushed toward the exit. The chimera blocked their path. Sirian lost patience, conjuring an ice sword to kill it. But Claire stopped him. Everyone understood her compassion, but this was a life or death situation, and the chimera needed to be eliminated as soon as possible. The ship tilted. Silica used a wind spell to push the monster back but failed. Lloyd told everyone to press their backs against the wall, then dispelled his gravity magic, causing them all to slide down the slanted floor. The chimera struggled to keep its balance, giving the group a chance to escape. The monster fired a combination attack of fire and wind, but Lloyd's magic shield protected everyone. Finally, Lloyd grabbed Rui and Silica, telling everyone to jump off the ship immediately, preparing for their desperate escape. Despite the danger, the group chose to place their trust in Lloyd. As the ship plunged downward, Lloyd ordered Syrian to create an ice platform for them to stand on, while Silica used air pressure magic to slow their fall. Thanks to that, everyone had enough time to jump off before the ship hit the ground. Syrian was stunned. He had once believed teamwork was only for the weak, but now he realized the true strength of unity. The ship crashed into the ground and exploded violently. Claire was heartbroken, thinking all the innocent souls within the chimera were gone. But the monster survived, even more ferocious than before. Lloyd immediately led everyone into the forest to find shelter and plan their next move. Merlin also located her disciple, confused as to why the whole group was hiding in the forest. But still deeply worried, Lloyd suspected that the Demon King fragment within Claire's ancient spell had awakened and was seeking a vessel to reincarnate. He suggested Claire sing, while he used enhancement magic to transmit emotion into the shard within her, hoping to return the chimera to normal. Merlin suddenly appeared, warning Lloyd not to take such a risk, as the ancient spell was extremely dangerous, and many overconfident users had perished because of it. Lloyd stood firm. "I'm not being overconfident. I'm simply acknowledging my own ability. My friends need me, and I will give everything I have." Merlin, though worried, no longer stopped him. Syrian used a barrage of ice rain to distract the chimera so Lloyd could get close and plant the staff into its body, while Claire sang under Lloyd's precise guidance. After a fierce struggle, the chimera began to split apart. But suddenly, a dark portal opened, pulling Lloyd inside. Merlin realized this was a side effect of using the ancient spell without proper inheritance. The chance that Lloyd would be trapped forever was extremely high. Inside the portal, Lloyd saw Chris's body disintegrating, and his own consciousness floating nearby. Then a voice echoed. It was Sivan, Merlin's former companion, and the only person in history who had used the ancient spell successfully without inheriting its rights. Sivan explained that Lloyd's mind had been separated. The ancient spell was originally created by beings far beyond human understanding, possessing the power to manipulate the laws of reality and craft new forms of magic that challenge the order of the world. Sivan recounted his final battle with the Demon King. He had cornered the Demon King completely. But before being destroyed, the Demon King self-destructed, annihilating everything. Sivan used a forbidden ancient spell to revive everyone caught in the explosion, at the cost of his own life. Now, only his soul remained to guide Lloyd. He told him to think of the people he wanted to return to. Hearing the voices of his teammates calling from outside, Lloyd hurled himself out of the portal just before it closed. Sivan's silhouette faded away, ending the tale of a brave yet tragic hero. Outside, the group was both relieved and terrified. But when Lloyd appeared behind them, everyone rushed in and hugged him with overwhelming joy. Back in the capital, Yui still couldn't believe that the great sage Merlin was actually Lloyd's master. The king rewarded them generously and even granted them a luxurious mansion. Lloyd noticed Ryo sniffing the mana emanating from his body, and Merlin explained that Ryo could distinguish mana by scent. When Merlin asked whether Lloyd wanted to return home, he shook his head. He couldn't bear to part with the comrades who had stayed by his side. And he still wanted to study many more kinds of magic. Even though living with Merlin meant constant suffering, he was determined to continue walking his own path, with his friends and magic beside him. And that's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support Oni-chan in making even more awesome videos. Thank you all for watching until the very end. Love you always.